Welcome back. Now that we know that what higher order functions are, let's actually create our own just to demonstrate how they works. So in this lecture, we are going to create a function that accepts other functions as input. But to start, let's write two very generic functions that do simple string transformation. So I'm going to call one word, okay, and this will simply replace all the spaces in a word, okay. So let's just see that. So let me just say constant one row. Here I'm saying function of str. So here we are going to return the function. Here let me just say here string dot replace. Okay, here we are using the previous what we learned from the slash and then here the g. If you remember from the previous lectures, we have already talked about it. We're converting this to lowercase. So this function here, what simply works. So this function here, what simply works anywhere in our code with any string. So it takes in one string and returns a new one without any spaces in it. Okay, let's just create another upper first words. So which also take in a string. So these two functions, they'll later be the functions that we pass in into another function. So here we'll say constant upper first word. So in this function as well, we'll just create a string. So here we'll just say constant of. So here we'll just say first, and then here we want all the rest of the others. Okay. Here we are setting this into string dot split of, and here we just simply return this function here. So here we'll say first dot. We are converting this to uppercase, and then the rest. So here we'll just say others instead of other, okay. And then we just simply join back the string again by using the space here. So we save it, okay. So as the name says, this function here will simply return the first word of the input string to uppercase. So let's just first split the string here. Oh, so by the empty string, and then we take the results and restructuring it into the first word, and then all the words, and then they return a new array, and then they will join by this, okay. So that's the first to uppercase. Here I am not explaining exactly how this all works because we have already talked about this stuff in the last video. So we spread the others also in this array, and then we join. So you see that everything that we learned before is actually pretty helpful again as always. And now we can create our higher order function, and that function will be called as a transformer, and these functions will take in also a string, but as a second argument it will take in a string, it will take in a function, okay. Therefore this is a higher order function, and so that defines that we learned about it in the last video. So it takes in a function, uh, and as for it is in higher, so it takes in a function, and as for it's a higher order function. And now let's see how we would actually call this function. So here let me just say here higher order function, and then here we'll just declare constant transformer equals to function of str, and then here I'm using again fn as function, okay. Here we'll just simply write this, and outside we are just going to call it. So here I'm saying transformer equals to JavaScript is the best upper first word. See here we haven't declared here the initially J as capital letter, right? So when we run this, once again notice here we are just passing in the function value itself, not just calling the function here. We are only passing in it, and then it will be the transformation. It will be and then it will be to transform function calling this function. So let's do it. So here we'll just say, so here we'll just console.log. Okay, here we'll say original string. So we want our original string to be here, right? So we'll just simply say str. So yeah, here we have to use the back tags for what. As you can see, this is our original string, and now again we'll just console.log this, and then here we'll pass the transform string. Yeah, here it should be the split. As you can see now, the only first word JavaScript is the capital transformed string, and also we'll just say console.log. We'll use transform. So it is transformed by, here we'll just say orphan dot name. So when we run this, see, as you can see here, it is transformed by the this upper first word. As you can see here, you are getting here. So what we did here was we just console log this original string here, so which is this line, and also in the second case we just console log the transformed string, which is of this fn of str. So when this function, when it is called, so here you can see here it goes to the first word, and then it splits up here, right? So as you can see here, it splits up. So only the first word gets here into the uppercase, as you can see, and rest, and then it will join with the spacing. So that's why here only the first one here gets the capital letters, and then last we are just using, so which function it was got transformed by. So here we declare two functions, right? So from this upper word first, so it got transformed by, so it's not transformed by one, so it just gives the upper word transformed by this output. And here when we declare here one more transformer, so we'll just say JavaScript is best, and then here we'll use one word. As you can see now, the output, as you can see here, everything here just removes the spaces, and then it converts everything into the lowercase. As you can see here, I declared here the capital letter, right? So here it converts everything into the lowercase, and then it removes every spaces in between them, and also here it is transformed by this function one word. Okay, so as you can see our output. So the original string here is JavaScript is the best, which is the first word is the J capital. It converts into smaller and then removes the spaces, and it is executed by this first function, which is called one word. So we are getting this output. Okay, so this is the higher order function here. So let's recap. We are calling the transformer function here into the function that we are passing the callback functions. And remember that we call these functions that we pass here. So this one and this one here. Okay. So the callback functions that because we do not call them ourselves. Instead, we call JavaScript to basically tell them later. In this case, we are just calling them later. Happens right here. Okay, it transforms a function that will call back the functions and the callback functions here are of course the fn here. Okay, so that the name of the function in here and that we have to call them. All right, so in fact that is exactly the same idea that we already talked about using the add event listener function, right? So let's just say we have a very simple function hi-fi which doesn't really do much except logging something to the console. So here we'll just say constant hi-fi. Here we'll just say console.log. So here we'll use the emoji. Okay, and then here we'll just say document dot body dot add event listener. So here when we click, we want our function. So we want our function here, right? So which is the hi-fi here. Okay, see when I click here, when I click anywhere on the screen, you can see here we are just getting here console.log, which is this emoji here. So when I click multiple times, as you can see here, it is just when I click anywhere on the screen, because document.body, which is this whole page. So don't worry about this document.body. Simply I'm just saying for an example here. So here as you can see it, right? So it is just a callback that the JavaScript will, as soon as we click on the body. So you see down here that they appear. Okay. And now then the callback is already called. So there are many other examples in JavaScript language, and this concept of callback function is used all the time in built-in JavaScript functions. So there are many more examples. For example, each function that we call on race. So let's create an array here, Max, John, and Adam. On that array, we call something for each method, and we learn about this one in the next section actually. And then again, we pass in callback function in for each. So let's just again use hi-fi here. So let's just say here Max, John, and then Adam dot for each of hi-fi. So as you can see here, when we save the page here, we are getting here the three emojis, because uh, here one is for Max, one is for John, and one is for Adam. So for three inputs, so here we are getting the three emojis here. So instead of emoji, you can put any simple emoji like hi-fi as well. But here I used here this emoji. So then here we get these three emojis. Okay, so that's because we have three elements in the array. Okay, and so the name of the method says for each of them is a callback which will be called, and therefore we have we have three emoji here. So we learn all about that for each method in the next section. What matters here is, once again, we use the concept of callback function here. So this is something really common in JavaScript here. Okay, so let me just say here in JavaScript uses callbacks all. Okay. So let's now actually take a minute or to understand why is this, why our callback functions are so much used in JavaScript, and why are they so helpful. Well, the first big advantage of this is it makes us to easily split up our code into more reusable or interconnected parts. So that's exactly we have right here. Okay, and we have all the functionality here nicely split up into their own functions, and that itself is really helpful. But there is a second way and the more important advantage, which is the fact that callback functions allows us to create abstraction. So let me explain what this means. So what we did here in our code example was to create a level of abstraction, and abstraction is something really important in programming. So basically what abstract means is, so we hide the details of some code implementation because we don't really care about all the details, and this allows us to think about the problem at a higher, more abstract level. That's why it is called an abstraction. So coming back to our example, as you can see here in this higher order function, we have declared here the transform function, right? So what it does is it simply just transform the string. So it doesn't care about the level of details. Okay, it just simply transforms the string. So as per the given instructions, it just simply transforms. So what we could have done is we could have taken this code here, so this one, and directly just pass it here in the transformer function, or else this code as well we could have directly passed this here in this function. So by doing this, or the main function here really is the only concern with the transforming the input string itself. But no matter how the string transforming itself actually works, so it basically delegating the string transformation to other lower level of functions, so which are these two here. Okay, I hope this makes sense for you. Okay, but we also come back to the idea of abstraction later when we talk about the object oriented programming. Here in this built-in function like add event listener, and for each these callback functions are so important, so useful, because we use them to tell these functions what exactly they should do. For example, the add event listener function on its own would have no idea of what to do when the event click happens here. So that's why we pass in the callback function here, so to tell the add event listener function exactly what to do. As you already know, this is the higher order function here with the high level of abstraction, and this here is the function with the more level of abstraction, right? All right, so I see you in the next video, which is basically to do the opposite of this one, so having functions written other functions. So that's it for this video.